Hello, this video is to talk about the stupidity of CERN's point particle concept theory. First of all, you've got a particle, and you say it's a point particle. Well, you have all that energy of the particle that moves around in space from point to point, and it keeps that energy contained at that point. What keeps that energy contained at that point? That particle gives off the strong force. Let's say it's a quark. It gives off the electromagnetic force, and it gives off the weak force. So you have three forces that manifest themselves contained in just an empty space, an empty single point in space. No. You're saying that every point particle is a singularity. Black holes are an infinitely small point of mass. Well, and I have my doubts about that. You'll see on pulsars and black holes a comparison, the video I made down below. The idea that you can have mass without structure is asinine. Let's talk about pair production. When you have a light wave, a gamma, and that gamma transforms into two electrons, an electron and a positron, that then separate, come apart, and then reannihilate and become gamma again, or one is captured and the other electron escapes. That's the only way electrons are made, except in gluons. Gluons produce electrons. This universe is all particles built on electron structures and waveforms that create those electron structures. And in those waveforms, there must be something to bond to create a particle that goes slower than the speed of light. I propose it's fundamental strings, and instead of those fundamental strings expressing their identity by waves on the circumference of the string, they remain rigid and just spin right or spin left, like a donut put on its side and spun like a top. Yes, physical spin, not quantum mechanical spin. Now you've got a single particle that is just energy contained in an infinitely small point, according to CERN, without structure, that moves through space. Then why isn't every point in space a particle? There's energy everywhere. Every point in space could be a particle. And that's saying, well, do you know your quantum mechanical math? And there are background fluctuations that could create a particle if they come together statistically in the right way, which is Casimir effect. Anyway, the idea of a point particle containing and doing all of that is asinine, and I'm a big critic of it. And I don't think that particles are singularities. If it's a energy occupying an infinitely small point and doing all of that, it's a singularity. What is there about that singularity's characteristics that keeps it together and stops that energy from just dissipating? What holds that energy there? I first proposed a concept called a locked-in waveform, a waveform locked in on itself. But that's naive in that a waveform would just lock in on itself, but it doesn't. But it led me to the concept, which I'm glad I had the thought, because it led me to the concept of uh, strings bonding by the weak force, by producing the weak force by their spin right or spin left. Whether it spins right or left produces the polarity negative or positive charge. And how do point particles bond and remain structures without structure? I believe mass requires structure. The particle, the light wave, has to convert, transform in some way to create those electrons. Something in them is bonding. I propose those fundamental strings bond to create the electron in a larger string, like looks like this. The bosons bond and create the electron, and the electron spins either right or left to create its polarity, positive or negative. If it spins left, it's an electron. If it spins right, it's a positron. And I'm just saying that by my own convention, because there's no way to really know. There's no way to tell. You can't get down on the particle and see which way an electron's spinning. And that's another thing at CERN. They've never seen the nucleus. They've never imaged the nucleus. All they see is its guts once it's blown out through their detector. I've seen attempts at trying to image the nucleus, and the best attempts have failed. Imaging a nucleus in situ and not its guts being blown out through the LHC. Imaging it is something that has never been done. And my model, once they image it, I know will be what they find. My model is the true representation of nature. Also, gamma creates the electrons. Lased, coherent gamma creates the gluons. It has to be coherent gamma because they've seen quark or particle creation in gamma ray bursts. And that leads me to believe that at the Big Bang and in gamma ray bursts, first of all, the particles are entangled because they're all coherent, and the particles are the waveforms that the lased gamma creates the gluons. It has to be coherent gamma. There's nothing else in the universe, nothing, that can make a gluon. You find me another concept that works besides mine, and I will definitely listen to you. Like you should listen to what I'm telling you, because it's 25 years of experience and I'm putting it to you in plain English. No, but the point particle is just to think all of that exists without structure. Mass requires structure to exist. That is my stern belief. And it is backed up by a lot of evidence in research. And Just because these particles are so small it is hard to get a handle on them doesn't mean they're point particles. They're not. Those particles are formed by other particles. There's no such thing as having something created without being created of something else. Think of that. There's no such thing as particles being created from nothing. I don't believe that. It requires quantum background fluctuation. It requires energy at the Planck level. It requires energy in space-time. It requires universal constants that spread the galaxies. There's a lot of stuff in this empty space. It's just how we evolved with our eyes and ears and how we evolve in it. We can't see it going on, but it is. And to think all of that is going on in an infinitely small point that can contain all of these different types of energy and function and characteristics without bonding. They must bond. There must be something that bonds in light to create mass. It's just that simple. Thank you.